It's where we talk about fixing the camera. We talk about writing and how to improve our writing through a variety of psychological tips as well as techniques, and yeah, pretty much everything to do with writing. That's what we do here, okay? So like, follow, and do all that stuff. So today we're going to be talking about James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and I've referenced this book in so many videos that it's absurd, but I'm not getting money for sales or anything. I just read the book and it's really effective, so I figured I'd share with you guys what I learned from it. I have it on my Kindle app, so I'm just going to reference this while I talk. James Clear basically talks about how habits form our identities and how identities can form our habits, and how our people's successes are a factor of a system of habits they've developed over time, as opposed to just one thing they did or luck or any of these things. So he talks about how 1% changes in our habits can have incremental gains over time for our results. And he has a variety of different chapters here that are very interesting to take a look at, but I'm going to cover some of the concepts that struck me as very fascinating from a psychological perspective and fresh concepts that I really thought were effective. Number one was integrating your habits into your identity. Do you run or are you an athlete, right? So James Clear makes the point that if you say you're going to run, and that's an activity you're going to do, then there's a lower chance for you to do that activity day to day and stick to it. However, if you integrate your activity into your identity, you're more likely to want to maintain your identity. So you will perform the behavior that you have associated with that identity. So for example, if I say I'm an athlete and my sport is running, to maintain my identity as an athlete, I'll have to run. So I'll be more motivated to maintain that identity than I am motivated to perform that actual behavior. So he uses this technique as a tool for ensuring that we maintain our habits. The second thing he talks about is how environment is much more controlling of our behavior than being motivated or having willpower. And this is a really great example because you see this reflected in a lot of psychological literature. But I'll give you a concrete example so that it's easier to understand. If you tend to eat past 7, but you're trying to maintain a certain weight and you don't want to eat past 7, it's easier for you to lock your fridge at 7 than it is for you to not walk to your fridge if it's open. If you create an environment that leads to the habit you're trying to, withdraw from yourself or elicit from yourself, there's a higher likelihood that you'll actually elicit that behavior. And that is, in essence, how you can control your environment to achieve the goals that you have. Another great example would be on your laptop. This is what I do for writing, but I've kind of stopped doing this because I needed my laptop for other things. But for a year, I only used my laptop. I had a separate laptop for writing. So I didn't have any apps on it or anything like that. Just Word, just the internet. And I ended up writing a lot on this laptop because I just didn't have anything else to do on it, and it wasn't related to my work or anything like that. So this was a really cool strategy, and I think you can take it to the nth degree and also block your internet on your laptop. And you know what I'm talking about, because that's a slippery slope, people. You go on one app, you go on another app, suddenly you're on Farmville. How did that happen? I don't know. Do people go on Farmville? No, I think it's like Animal Crossing now. People cross animals now. Before they used to farm vegetables. Now they're crossing animals. But I also think they also farm vegetables on Animal Crossing because they gotta feed the animals. There's no way, right? Let me know. Keep me updated. Now, another thing he talks about is how tiny changes can make a big difference. And he gives an example of the British team, how they just kept losing at the Olympics. It was a sad sight, sad tale. But then there was a coach who came in. He made 1% changes at different points of their whole training, coaching process. So the towels, the type of massages they got, the type of clothing they had, how aerodynamic it was. He made these 1% changes everywhere, and that accumulated to them winning the Olympics and succeeding. So it basically talks about how you can make small changes in your whole system across the board, and how that will also have a major impact as opposed to simply changing one thing 20%. I thought that was fascinating. So one way you could apply this to your writing goals, for example, would be you have to map out your whole process and see where you can make small changes depending on what actually works. So let's say you're trying to get published, trying to write more. You know what, let's go for the writing goal. You're trying to write more. So the whole process would be you have tools you write, there's a thought that gets you there. You have to type with your fingers. You have to do research depending on your chapters. Perhaps you have to eat at some point in that process, so you have to order lunch, but probably you could optimize or improve each point of the process. So for example, let's say your laptop doesn't have a very fast processor, so the words appear very slowly. If you get a better laptop, you'll see the words appear much more quickly, and perhaps that increases the speed at which you can write. Let's say you're also typing. If you go and you learn how to type faster, maybe you would write more words more quickly. Now, let's say that you order food at some point while you're writing. If you order in advance or you set up a system where you don't have to stop yourself from writing in order to order that food, maybe you could write more instead of stopping and distracting yourself to go get food. There are a variety of things you could do to speed up the rate at which you write. Of course, there are some variables like divine inspiration that you can never control, and that could be a fallacy, who knows. But there are things that are very practical that you can actually implement, and eventually all those little changes might add up to like 500 net words, let's say a week of more that you've done. So things like that are really fascinating to explore. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the last two things I'm going to talk about is the first one's going to be visual measurement. So Clear talks about creating systems of visual measurement to motivate you to perform that task. He specifically mentions ticking off your visual measurement cue right after you've performed a certain task. So if I wanted to write a page a day and I had, let's say, a visual measurement system in the calendar, I would tick off that line on that day when I was done my writing task, and that would give me a reward immediately. Pretty basic stuff when it comes to psychology, but he also had a really cool visual system that I thought was fascinating, and it was like a jar of paper clips and then an empty jar, and then every time you perform a certain task that you're trying to perform, you take a paper clip from one jar, the jaws of life, and you take a paper clip and you move it to the empty jar, and then you just keep doing this until every day you're motivated by that one motion. That's a visual measurement system. Now, the last thing that impacted me the most was the concept of professionals showing up even when they don't want to. So how do you separate an amateur writer or an amateur anything from a professional writer or professional anything? Well, James Clear makes the argument that you look at professionals and they show up every day no matter what they're feeling, no matter what is going on, they show up. Versus amateurs, they don't show up every day. They'll be distracted by how they feel, things that don't work out, fears, maybe even external things like, events. So if you want to migrate from being an amateur at your writing or a professional at your writing, you have to show up every day. And this leads me back to Stephen King's big tip, which is that he has to write 7 pages a day, no matter what. And that's his thing. He just writes 7 pages a day. So that's a professional, if you think about it. An amateur would not do that. So James Clear has incredible points in Atomic Habits. Highly recommend. DM me if you want more information. I have a PDF file. But DM me for more information if you want to know more about James Clear. Okay? Yeah. Thanks for watching, you guys. Still really excited that you guys are following me. 25. It's a big number for me. It's a big number, yeah. Follow for more videos. Follow me on Instagram. You know what? One of these days I'm going to take off these glasses and just do a video like this because I feel like the glare is very impersonal, but I can't see myself. Oh my god, this is crazy. I can't see anything. Well, anyways. Thanks for watching, you guys. Please make sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.